Oh, hello there. Graphics. It's something we face every time we play a video game. We love it for delighting our eyes, we hate it for screwing up our game performance. But what is graphics? How does it work? Is it really what we think it is? Is it just about crispiness of the image and number of details? Do we really need good graphics? Or is it just another stupid marketing strategy? What is the future of graphics? Well, that's a lot of questions you ask. Let's find out. First, whether good graphics is important or not, vision is still a huge part of our sensory system, and it's even bigger when it comes to video games, because here we got nothing but our sight and hearing, both usually in relatively primitive form, and graphics are responsible for our vision, so it is extremely important even though it's not crucial. In 1974, Atari released a video game which wasn't actually video. It was called Touch Me, and what's interesting about it is that it was the first game that didn't require your eyes to play it, the first audio game. Now there are plenty of them, there is even a special website with news, the list of games, discussions and many more, so check it out, it's like a totally different world of computer gaming. Oh, by the way, there will be many cool links to the source material of this video, so check it out if you're interested and wish to learn more. But let's get back to video games. At some point of the video game history it became popular and cool to think that graphics isn't important, and that gameplay and story and atmosphere are much more important than graphics. Like, there are tons of posts, comments, videos about that, and it's actually a good example that shows that people don't really know what they want. Because of course graphics is important, it provides games with more opportunities. I mean, gameplay, if you look at the history of video games you will notice that most revolutionary video game genres were created thanks to graphics. Story? Graphics let stories to be told, graphics lets to tell the stories without words, using emotions and performances of characters, and the way they look. The environment is also a great storyteller, and advanced graphics lets it to tell its story, like in Dark Souls world, for example. Atmosphere. Silent Hill 2 would not have existed without graphics, which looks great even in 2016. It wouldn't have built that atmosphere without that visual depth and convincing environment. Good graphics is also maybe very important for good presentation, to convey the right emotions, like the game shows you an epic scary boss and it's meant to scare shit out of you just by its look, but of course it's hard to do it when this boss looks like shit. Of course not all good games need the latest most advanced graphics to be good, but many of them do. Many good games wouldn't have existed without new graphics capabilities. I mean, even Mario, or whatever old schoolers worship these days, was a very advanced game in terms of graphics back then. Oh, and of course good graphics doesn't always mean advanced graphics, but that's a different topic. Long story short, graphics technologies give more freedom. Okay, that's cool, but what is graphics actually? Well, to put it short, it's a lie. Basically, graphics is what we see in the virtual world, and everything we see in the virtual world is always based on the real one. I mean, even if there is a very fantasy world with dragons and orcs, metal still looks like metal, and water still looks like water, or at least it's trying to. But how can we distinguish metal from water? Actually, even the ability to see is already referring to our world a lot. The reason we can see anything is light, and without light there is no picture, no image, nothing. So how does it work in our world? Okay, let's assume that you studied physics in school and you know that there are photons, they are freaking fast, they interact with the world, objects, materials, they can be absorbed, reflected, transmitted. Oh, and since light behaves not only as a particle but also as a wave, actually it isn't exactly like either, it also has properties of waves like refraction, Doppler's effect, etc. My head. School flashbacks. Not now. And so light interacts with objects and reflects to our eyes. But since different materials and different objects reflect light differently, we can figure out some properties of those. That's why we can distinguish a metal sword from a lake. And now we see such realistic graphics in new games that look even better than our real world. soft and accurate shadows, reflections, god rays, volumetric fog, so it seems logical to assume that light and materials in video games work on the somehow similar principles with our world. But nope, it has nothing in common with it. No, of course, there are no photons there. Furthermore, there is no light and no materials to interact with. There are just a bunch of polygons with textures. Oh, yeah, textures. How do you think those are made? 2 decades ago, when the real 3D kicked in, textures consisted only of a diffuse map usually. A drawing or a photo basically. And to make a good photo you need a nice lighting, so the textures already had the information about their surroundings. The whole thing changed for better with DirectX 9 and its new shader model. Textures now had not only diffuse maps, but specular maps and normal maps also, which in combination with per-pixel lighting and phone shading made the revolution in 3D graphics. Few years ago, materials started using PBS, which is meant to represent real materials on a physical level. Of course it doesn't, but what it does is it lets us put a lot of useful information about the properties of the material in its surface. And that is what's responsible for that next-gen look. Textures have even more maps now. Diffuse map changed to albedo map, which is still usually a photo, but with as less light information as possible, so it's very pale. Materials now have kind of Fresnel effect.
Everything has Fresnel, right?
Everything has Fresnel.
Basically, it means that reflectance you see on the surface depends on the viewing angle. And still, materials in their nature have nothing in common with the real world, no matter how realistic they look. Actually, now they have even less in common with the real world than before. Here's the thing. Long time ago, polygons were not the only thing out there. There were also voxels, 3D pixels basically, and voxels were way more sincere and much more similar to the real world. But they lost to polygons because polygons were much cheaper. Nowadays voxels are only used for some science simulations and stuff like this, or for games with volumetric world like Minecraft, which is not even voxel based really. Yeah, this is funny. While the data about the world is stored in voxels, those voxels are rendered with polygons. Achieving the quality of polygonal meshes with maps using voxels is far beyond our actual capabilities, so it seems like voxels are ahead of their time. Or are they? In 2010, a company called Euclideon presented a very strange thing. It's called Unlimited Detail Engine, and as the name suggests, it can produce unlimited number of details. Modern games are restricted to use several million polygons per scene because the number of polygons affects the performance. But with unlimited detail technology there is no such restriction, you can use as many polygons as you want. But actually, polygons are not even the case here, because it's also voxel based, meaning that the whole thing is built out of little 3D atoms, so the whole thing is entirely volumetric, unlike modern games. And you don't even need GPU to render it. Sounds crazy, right? Well, there is a lot of controversy around it. They haven't released much details, there are no games using their technology, or almost no games. I mean, they recently built that entertainment center with holographic experience that uses their engine. And it's located somewhere in Australia, so yeah. But even if it's no bullshit, even if it's so good as they present it, it still can't compete with traditional ways of doing things. Because they already have a huge base around them, there are lots of developed technologies, and new ones are coming very fast. They made a long way from this to this. But voxels don't have such experience yet. For instance, as far as I know, voxels still lack even good animation technology. And it's a huge problem, obviously. The second reason is that no one will let that happen anytime soon. The whole industry works the way it works, and such a technological revolution would change everything. I mean, it doesn't even use GPU, and you know what it means. Plus, it would also change the way video games are created. So yeah, lots of changes. But in the end of the day, voxels or something similar to them is the future of gaming, because world is volumetric. If voxels got you interested, you may also want to check out Montage engine, which is also voxel based but allows to use polygons as well. They also have cool videos showing how easily voxels can deal with something that is unachievable or very hard for polygons, like soft bodies. I've also heard that they're trying to imply thermodynamics and lots of crazy stuff, so yeah, you may want to check it out. But let's get back to lighting. Lighting can have many forms, it can do many cool things. It may seem very complicated, but behind all the magic is just a photon. Nice and simple. But when it comes to real-time computer rendering, as I already said, there is no light, it doesn't simulate anything. It just takes all needed consequences of light and tries to fake it. And there are lots of technologies. First I tried to create a spreadsheet thinking it will be much easier to systemize it and explain it this way, but after several attempts I totally gave it up because it's impossible to systemize it, but I'll try to explain it to you anyway. So basically there are about from 10 to 20 principles, methods of lighting, which are in use at the present time. And each one of them has from 1 to 5 and more implementations, technological implementations. And as I said before, since they're just purely faking some properties of light, you'll most likely need to combine several of them to achieve a tolerable result. Oh, it started raining. Nice. I wish I didn't live in a treehouse. Let's hope it won't create any noise. And it's hard to achieve this result, because you also have to blend them together, so they don't look like they're from different worlds. And many of them don't really work well with each other. Some of them are glitchy as hell, others appear to be just components of the bigger ones. There are also several technologies that don't work without each other at all. Some of the technologies are just for direct light in little dynamic scenes with high approximation quality, others are for open worlds with a day and night cycle, many of them are totally static. Some of them are very cheap, some are flexible, and so on and on. And of course, if you need some more detailed light or some optical effects like dispersion or acoustic, those technologies won't do it for you, so you'll usually have to do it yourself. So is there really no ultimate cool technology to simulate all lighting without all that black magic and headache? Well, yes and no. There are such technologies. There are global illumination technologies like path tracing or photon mapping, which are capable of kind of simulating light. Yes, they are self-sufficient, they are very different from all those methods I've been talking about. They are a million times more physically accurate, they work like magic, they are photorealistic, they are way more natural, you may see them in movies, commercials, billboards, 3D cartoons, etc. But there is one thing. It may take many hours to render a single frame with the render farm. Because simulating light is a hell of a work that needs enormous amount of calculations, so it won't work for video games, because in video games you don't have 10 hours to render a single frame, and you don't have a render farm. So yeah, those technologies are nowhere close, and we will probably need to wait many decades to see those run in real time. So developers are all doomed to waste many days building that fake lighting so it doesn't look like total shit, and gamers are doomed to play games with shit unrealistic fake light and shadows. We're all doomed. Or are we? There is a company called Otoy, and some time ago they showed their engine called Brigade, and it uses path tracing to render image in real time. Yes, it's not perfect, yes, it's still expensive, very expensive, but hey, it's still like a miracle. Of course, it's not likely that we're gonna see games using it anytime soon. Anyway, it's another huge step towards the bright future. Now let's play a little game. What do you think it is? Does it look like a 3D model to you, right? Well, actually it's totally flat, but this is 3D, right? I can even rotate it in 3 axes. Still no, something gamers don't usually think about is that 3D games are actually 2D, because the image is rasterized to appear on the flat screen of the monitor. Next. Okay, you think this is a shadow? Of course it's not. In our world, shadows are areas where light is blocked by something. But in video games, it's the opposite. There is no light, so shadows are created by objects. They're just images stored in the additional UV channel. Does this look like a reflection to you? Well, it's not a reflection. Video games can't display reflections yet, unless you are using that Brigade engine path tracing or VXGI from NVIDIA. Because there is no light, so there is nothing to reflect. In fact, it's just an image of the surrounding environment, a cube map. You can place a picture of whatever you want there. But wait, what about those mirrors, like in Arma 3, you may ask? Well, the best way to deal with functional mirrors is to place a camera in its place and just render the image from its point of view, which is expensive and brutal in its non-reflection, of course. What are those levitating spheres? Maybe they're just levitating spheres. Well, they're called light probes. It's just another real-time lighting method. You think it's an advanced real-time water simulation, right? Well, actually it's just a bunch of spheres bouncing around. Oh, wait, is it even graphics? This is actually interesting. Let's imagine a falling box in a video game. And it falls because of physics, right? But we can see it because of graphics. You see, when we think about physics in video games, we probably think about ragdoll physics, about gravity, inertia, cloth simulation, destruction models, etc. And when we think about graphics, oh, I guess we've already figured it out. But the thing is that in reality graphics and physics are both the same thing called physics. Everything in our world exists not only visually but also functionally. Everything has lots of properties, not because it's scripted, but because of its nature, because of the way it is. And that's the biggest difference between the video games and reality. Maybe someday video games will start to merge real physics and graphics, when the virtual world will be ruled by real physical equations. And it will be a huge revolution, not only for video games. But it won't happen anytime soon. Well, that's it. Yeah. Don't forget about those links in the description if you want to learn more. Check my previous videos about death in video games, for example. The next video will be released in a few weeks, I hope. Yeah, I do. So, until we meet again.